So I'm going to open by saying hello to everybody. Welcome to this Firecell webinar on private 5G and machine building, machinery for production. As you can see on the screen, we got three presenters. It's as it so happens, which is purely a coincidence. They're all from France, but we're going to present in English anyway. Myself, I'm Koen Mulet. I'm one of the founders of Pan-European Association. I'll mention that in a second. And we got three presentations, but plus I'll do a bit of an introduction. There is a chat function on the right. So there's a button at the top end of your screen, so you can post questions there. Zineb, who's one of our colleagues, will look at the questions. So at the end, we'll address all the questions that you people have. I'll now start sharing my screen, which is this one. And now you should be seeing a screen of mine that says Webinar Private 5G.
Correct.
Yeah. Now it should go in presentation mode. All right. So welcome again. My name is Koen Mulet, which also happens to be a French name. I'm the secretary of EUINA, which is the European Users of Enterprise Wireless Networks Association, Pan-European Association of Private Wireless Users. I'll do a brief introduction and then I'll hand over to our presenters. Here's the program. So after myself, there will be a presentation from Omron Robotics, which is Gilles Gomila. He's integration manager there, and they produce equipment for plant automation. Then we will have a presentation from MGA Technologies, Grégoire de Langotier, who's their industrial development manager, and they are a system integrator in the field of plant automation in what they call cleaner production environments, say pharmaceuticals, electronics. And then we have as a third presenter, Hervé Romanet from Amada, who is a metal processing manufacturer. And they're in the more heavier environments. They do sheet cutting, etc., and material handling. And he will present his automation requirements for, again, factory automation. So the red line of our presentations today is plant and factory automation and machinery for factory automation. What is private wireless all about? Private wireless is more or less what is often called Industry 4.0, industry automation in its latest stages. And then you're talking about ports automation, manufacturing, heavy industry, lighter industry, use of tablets, AI, VR, robotics, augmented reality for maintenance purposes, also steering of heavy industry in like excavation and mining. And of course, which we'll talk a lot about today, is robots in factory environments. So these are all images of typical, well, industry 4.0 factory automation kind of settings. I will use a few examples. One I will mention is the so-called main ports, airports and seaports. Now, of course, those are large. Not everybody in the audience has a port, but I use those to show you the sheer size and capability of enterprise wireless, what wireless can do for an enterprise. These are truly large examples. Then I'll show you an example of manufacture, which is what today is all about. And I'll show you another small example of heavy industry, which is a bit like what Amada will be showing. So here's an example of a private wireless network in France at Paris Airport. This is a huge network. Don't look at all the details, but look at this figure. 50 square kilometer, almost 100 base stations, all operational processes at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris are now conducted over private LTE. This network is LTE, it's not 5G yet. But here's a huge example. This is another example. This is in the container terminal in the port of Rotterdam. This container terminal is still the largest in Europe. It used to be the largest in the world, not anymore. Holland lost that position to China. But this whole quay of 5 kilometers of container cranes and straddle carriers, over 400 cranes, all controlled over private LTE. So those are two examples of huge networks with very critical performances. This is a picture. Again, we're not going to dwell on all the details, but these are a couple of main ports, or in blue airports and in green seaports, that we can find in Northwestern Europe alone, just Northwestern Europe, nowhere else. And already you're looking at about 20 of those airports and seaports that have started automating their processes using private wireless. So the momentum in ports and airports and seaports is humongous, it's enormous. Here's a more average example, if you like. This is a composite factory in England, in Bristol, where they use 5G for, as it says here, augmented reality in design and production, asset tracking, so where are my devices in real time, and industrial IoT, I should use my cursor here, industrial IoT, and data retrieval to control and steer. And here's an example of a truly heavy industry, Kone cranes. They're developing huge cranes, and they're using private wireless for automated crane control. And they're experimenting in their laboratory with completely unmanned cranes. In manufacture, you're primarily talking about Industry 4.0, the latest innovation stages of industry. You're talking about flexible manufacture, which is very much what Omron will also address in his presentation. You're talking about being able to relocate machinery without having to pull wires, because once your machinery is on 5G or wireless, you can move it around and it's still connected. You don't need to rewire anything. The ability to produce in small series, and again, Gilles from Omron will also highlight this. Enhancing efficiency, of course, wireless is also an enabler for enhancing, reducing the cost and enhancing the efficiency. New applications like VR and AR in production and augmented reality applications. Wireless is, of course, an enabler. Let's not over-exaggerate the importance of wireless. It's an enabler for plant automation. It's not a purpose in its own right. 5G, and we'll address that in the presentations of all three presenters. 5G is one of the wireless options, and of course, it's the top end of the wireless options, but it's not the only option. There's 4G, there's Wi-Fi, there's IoT, there are other standards. Here's a bit of statistics. These are a couple of the applications that the GSA, the Global Supplier Association, has currently spotted. 889 private networks worldwide, with the bulk of them in manufacture, which is the bit that I made red in this picture. This is manufacturing, factories. But as you can see, in mining and education, in utilities, in seaports, in oil and gas, there's applications everywhere. So this institute found 889 applications. Here's another picture. Those people found 2,800 applications. And the difference is that the GSA only measures the ones that are above 100,000 euro. So the GSA measures the larger ones. And these people, mobile experts they're called, they measure all systems, including small ones. So it is fair to say that there's anywhere between, oh, this should be hidden because it's in the way. Here at the bottom, there's anywhere between 1,000 and 3,000 of those systems presently. Is that a lot? Maybe not. But what is impressive is, of course, the growth. This is a picture from an English consultancy club called Analysys Mason. And look at the growth. This is the growth that a lot of analytics companies are projecting. And you're looking at something like 50% growth per annum. So the absolute number of systems out there may not yet be terribly impressive, but the growth definitely is. Things are going to expand, very definitely. In order to build a private network, you need spectrum. Well, the people that are going to present in a minute are all in France. And as this picture shows, there is private spectrum in France, so-called tipo 2.6 Agur TDD spectrum. But as you can see from the flags, don't look at all the details. This arrow shows 2 gigahertz, 3 gigahertz, 4 gigahertz. We're not going to dwell on all the details, but as you can see from the flags, there's a couple of countries that have private spectrum. France, in fact, has 2 bands. They're also in 3.8. England is at 3.8. The EU is looking at standardizing in 3.8. Holland, Germany, Sweden, and Denmark in 3.7. So there is private spectrum in a number of countries, but there isn't yet spectrum in every country. And the picture is rather scattered because the spectrum differs per country. So that's a definite predicament. We're still looking at the scattered market in terms of spectrum availability. The EU, as I said, is planning on standardizing 3.8, 4.2 gigahertz, but a couple of years to go still.